There are a lot of countries in EU5, some that are more interesting to play than others. For example, if we load into EU5 itself, head on over to India, but then head north into the Himalayas, to this location over here, we're going to find this small nation called the Thikana of Nagar. Naturally, they still have access to the Dharmic Hindu content line. They're a monarchy, so they have access to the monarchy side of innovations and things like that. And naturally, they are a settled country, so they get all of those. But nothing else they have going for them, right? They kind of just exist. And if we pop into them as a country, we're going to see that it's not a good existence, to put it mildly. So yeah, here we are. If we take a look at the province, we have a demography composed of around, 4,500 people, give or take. A demography so terrible that if our unmarried ruler goes ahead and marries someone and then his wife actually moves into the country, we're going to gain a 0.02% increase in our population. We're also an embezzler, an impressive trait considering my question is what are you embezzling? No, like really, what are you embezzling? If we max mint at 100%, or at least the highest possible taxes on our entire nation, we're able to get 0.19 of income. And maxing out all the expense sliders is going to cost us 0.11 total expenses. That is to say that if we wanted to build a building, for example, a market village for 60 ducats, yeah, we're gonna be spending a while trying to do that. Oh, and our army is 20 people. Like, the whole army is just 20 people. Like, assigning a general to this army will represent a 5% increase in the total size of the armed forces. And of course, it goes without saying you're on a mountain, sparsely vegetated, cold, arid, inland location. So, not exactly excellent land for empire building. Long and short of it, basically, don't play these guys. There's no ulterior motives here, but they're actually really fun, or there's some kind of challenge. They're just not something you should play. This is not a good country to play in EU5. But nevertheless, you're not here for Sakana of Nagar gameplay. What are 5 countries I'd actually recommend you play instead? At number 1 on our list is going to be the Mahayana of Vijayanagar, a nation just brimming with potential. You have a lot of content and a lot of unique advances, and you're also in India, meaning that while you don't have a large chunk of the land, you already have 2.5 million pops. Be cautious, of course, your enemies to the north have a massive population of 40 million and quite a lot of strength, and even these guys to the south of you have 3.4 million men. Now, you have a bit better control and a bit more of a, shall we say, centralized grasp of your nation, meaning despite these population differences, you are just about stronger, with 30,000 in terms of levies compared to 21,000 south of you, so you should have at least an easy enough time expanding and consolidating your position. Nevertheless, the Sultanate of Delhi and their collapse is going to present opportunity as well as threats, so be aware of that developments as well. And of course, as a country itself, you have a plethora of dynamic historical events, a lot of cool buildings, including a special library and a special palace you build in your capital, and in H2 you will unlock the Bunds. This is an infrastructure building, and the tech itself is going to give you 10% food production, and the Bund building is also pretty good, buildable in cities, towns, and rural locations. It's going to greatly increase local food production and local population capacity. Excellent for any pop maxing aspirers out there. The other nice thing with it is that it is a multiple building type. You don't build one of them, you can have multiple one of these. And it scales to around 6 or 7 on major population centers, meaning that even major population centers can overcome the minus 33% debuff from being a city and have like 70% extra food production, which is amazing, in essence letting you feed everyone. It's a really, really strong building, especially because, again, this is not a replacement for irrigation. This stacks with irrigation, letting you build both bunds and irrigation to really get that food production to insane levels. Overall, a pretty cool nation. It's a way of interacting with the Hinduism mechanics as well, and dealing with Sikhism when that becomes a, shall we say, concern later on. So, yep, a great way of experiencing the India content, and the campaign goal for me will be pretty simple, albeit not a trivial one: unite India and form Bharat. This campaign goal will vary in difficulty depending on what Timur does, but that's, up to you to decide. And while a starting population of 2.5 million may seem pretty impressive, be aware again, your neighbors have more than you, and also the Black Death is not going to be kind to you. Either way, this is a campaign I had played myself and completed, and one I'd certainly enjoyed, and hence will be my recommendation to you as well. But let's say you want to do a campaign in Europe. You don't want to have a hard time with institutions, which is something that Vijayanagar will struggle with, but something that it can overcome. Well, for a Europe campaign, I'm going to recommend Scotland. Scotland starts with a plethora of unique content, including 48 dynamic historical events and a whole bunch of country bonuses. But it also has a set of unique mechanics that deal with the Highland population in Scotland, which is represented through the tribes estate. There are certain unique estate privileges you can grant for the tribes if you are Scottish, dealing with those Highlanders in question, as well as laws like the distribution of Scots clan holdings that you're going to have to interact with, which again represent how you're going to be dealing with those tribes. Overall, it's a pretty fun campaign with a lot of options, including a Celtic restoration. If you wish to take the Highlanders as your primary culture, you'll have a unique event for that, and also how you will deal with the English down south, whether through playing tall and attempting to outscale them, or direct conquest into their lands. You also start the game in a civil war, which is pretty unique and has a plethora of content associated with that as well, including a bunch of events as you are fighting said civil war. But overall, plenty of options with how you want to approach a Scotland game, and certainly a recommendation from me. And in the event that you do get as far as Scottish Enlightenment, which I will have to concede is unfortunately a Age of Revolutions technology, so it will be a while and its usefulness will be reduced, you still pick up 20% monthly research progress as well as some cultural influence, but that monthly research progress is absolutely insane. It's just a shame it's so late into the run. Okay, what if you want to play someone, dare I say, a bit wider, with a bit more land to work with, but still a decent bit of challenge, and a whole bunch of unique content around it? Well, for that I'm going to suggest the Republic of Novgorod for my third nation. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Muscovy is a rising power that you will have to contend with, and while they certainly aren't, at the moment, shall we say, doing too well when it comes to this rising power, they are still no pushover, especially if you're new to the game. Novgorod also isn't that strong of a nation. A lot of the time you're going to be struggling to beat back nations like Sweden, who tend to really enjoy going into your lands, including, and not limited to, of course, capturing the city of Novgorod itself. The other thing to bear in mind is that while you do look pretty big on the map, most of your land is pretty terrible. Empires aren't usually built on Arctic marshes, but that's a pretty apt description of most of your land. Yes, the eventual population capacity and potential of the land is there, but it's certainly not good, and the large distances involved among your provinces make urbanization and empire building that much harder. Still, if you play Novgorod and form Russia, you'll have access to a plethora of bonuses both from the Russia content as well as the Novgorod content itself, and it's a campaign I'd certainly recommend. Also, if you had played as the Orthodox Byzantine Empire, which starts with the control of the main Orthodox Patriarch, this is another way of playing around the Orthodox mechanics, but trying to establish your own patriarchy and seeing how that works for you. It's also a good way of learning and interacting with the Orthodox mechanics without also having to learn and interact with the Turkish Beylik mechanics. Either way, they're certainly a recommendation from me, but I think that's enough for European nations. I mean, just being in Europe is already quite good for picking up a bunch of the European institutions. Let's look further abroad, and for our fourth nation, now outside of Europe, a nation which frequently tends to be overlooked, but still I think is quite interesting, well, that is going to be the Khmer Empire. An excellent way of interacting with the Sarvadara and Buddhist mechanics, with a unique country that has a whole bunch of things going for them as well as a can you overcome your eventual decline. See, by 1444 in the EU4 start date, Ayutthaya has risen to prominence and is going to be posing a large threat to you as the Khmer Empire, leading to your eventual downfall. Let's see if you can change that line of history and try and preserve the Khmer Empire into the 1800s. Now, you are certainly a strong nation with 2.5 million times the population, and at least an existent tax base, which is neat. That said, you are still pretty weak compared to nations like the Great Yuan, and the nations around you, like Dai Viet, are not exactly pushovers either. Dai Viet, for example, only slightly having less troops than you at game start, which is pretty impressive, considering your differences in population. But okay, what else does Khmer have going for it? Well, you are in a pretty good position to attempt to log down the spice trade early, a very profitable endeavor, and in general in a pretty underplayed area of the world. I think Siam is quite neglected. However, there is also one final measure that I think I've been, well, dare I say, saving the best for last, which might just convince you to give the Khmer Empire a playthrough. Because yes, you're going to have a very hard time getting institutions in the Khmer Empire over here, that I will concede. But to make up for that, you have ballista elephants. I mean, do I need to continue? You get to have elephants that you put ballistas on. What's not to love? It's ballista elephants. So yes, if you want any other specific campaign goals, I want to have a massive army of ballista elephants from you as well. In terms of actual other country bonuses, you tend to be pretty strong. Let's be clear, hydraulic cities isn't anything too cool. -5 urban building cost will slow down that paradox, but actually it's a pretty decent modifier. That stacks quite well with other modifiers and is pretty good. -5% construction cost in urban is certainly nothing I'm going to scoff at. And it even picks up some proximity cost later, which is pretty neat. So yeah, if you want to play outside of Europe and want to play a nation with a unique religion, Theravada Buddhists over here, they're an excellent choice and one that I would certainly recommend. Although I think out of everyone on this list, they're going to have the hardest time with institutions, so do bear that in mind. Having said that, of course, not having access to European gunpowder does just mean that you have more time to spend with your ballista elephants. But alright, that's my selling point for the Khmer Empire. Let's move on to our final suggestion on this list, and they also do have access to a whole, not even just one unique unit, but a whole line of unique units, and I think they're pretty underrated, given just how much content and unique gameplay they have. And I'm of course referring to the Ethiopian Empire. They have a plethora of content, a whole bunch of dynamic historical events, and a lot of country bonuses. But they're also one of the few Miamphisite countries out there, and Miamphisite is a pretty developed religion with a whole bunch of other things going for it as well, so if you want to play a Miamphisite nation, Ethiopia is an excellent choice as well. The area is pretty underrated in my opinion too, and presents a lot of unique opportunities and challenges. You're certainly not very weak, 700k population isn't anything to scoff at, but Yemen across the pond has over 3 times that and is going to be not best friends with you. And in the long term, the Egyptians are going to be an issue too. The Egyptians, though, for you are certainly a cloud with a silver lining, as the Egyptians will be able to pick up Western institutions, which you'll be able to trade for and acquire yourself. Regarding your actual options for the campaign, you can either play tour in Ethiopia proper, taking over the Horn of Africa and making that your true homeland, or you can try and push and reclaim Jerusalem and setting up a Miamphisite empire, which will be a difficult task as Egypt doesn't tend to give up without a fight, shall we say that. You also have some opportunities for alternative colonization, as you have relatively early access to Africa, as well as an easier time going into establishing Indian colonies or even into Malaccan colonies, so that can be an option too, and a very profitable one. Overall, the paths for your expansion and what you want to do are really up to you. You are, in some ways, in the middle of the world. And on top of everything previously mentioned, you also have access to the Kawa Regiment's Advance, giving you access to the Kawa unit's regular regiments and the Kawa barracks building, which, outside of armories, is one of the few ways of acquiring monthly manpower early on in the game. Furthermore, instead of just having one unique unit, your Kawa regiments can upgrade throughout the ages, so you're able to have your unique Kawa regiments scaling with time as well. It's not just Winter SARs that pop up for an age or two, you actually have these guys for the entire campaign, which is pretty neat. Overall, given the actual potential of this campaign and all the country bonuses associated with it, I think Ethiopia is pretty criminally underrated as an EU5 campaign, and certainly is my recommendation. Either way, I do hope at least one of these countries has interested you, but unfortunately that is all the time I have for you today. Thank you very much for watching. A special thank you to all my channel members, especially Ark, Solar, Solemon, Lord Zendikar, Nikas, Nanhatan, Star72, The Awesome Rabbit, Best Friend Gaming, Grandmil Flavia, Lebarule, W Haste, Sov, Anthony35, AC Napo, Conspiracy Pizza, Yukata, Danray, Malvi, Jack, Ryland, Stuart Allen, Andrew Black, Nebula, Zentronic, Twinet, and Aquabird.